I know that cybersecurity is right at the top of your list of priorities, as it is Brian Moynihan's. What's your initial reaction when you read this? First of all, how do you know Bank of America doesn't have this problem?
Well, let's start with cybersecurity has to be at the top of every corporation's list. It's a ubiquitous risk, and it's potentially systemic, so it's real. When I saw the news this morning, my first reaction was, well, third-party and fourth-party risk is, in fact, I think, the greatest source of risk any supply chain for any company has. It's not just the companies we work with, but the companies they work with. So understanding the risks of the lineage of the hardware and software that actually goes to market, understanding where people are working with what vendors. People tell us all the time we're tough to do business with. I've actually become very proud of that. On behalf of our customers and clients, I actually don't think it should be easy to put technology into the marketplace. One thing I don't think has gotten enough conversation this morning, though, is we're talking a lot about the chip and its detection. There are other mechanisms for prevention of risk that come with that. We look at how data moves in our company. So if somebody is resident in our own hardware, could they actually get anything that was important to us? If the data moved, would we know? And so, all of the emerging excellence in cybersecurity is really multiple layers of defense, coupled with great tech investment, which we do a lot of, and great talent. So it's a multi-layer defense strategy.
So has the hardware hack possibility been on your radar screen? Because we just haven't, in covering stories like this, it's always been software. It's always been data access. It hasn't been actually something physically implanted in your machine.
I think that's a really important part of the discussion. What this story reminds people, or tells people for the first time, is that hardware risk is real. I think the risk has always been there, but real manifestations of it that go beyond the hype or the fear that gets generated, those manifestations are very important, and this will spark a new dialogue.
So how do you look at it in terms of protection? Because I was on a panel where I talked to three CFOs of three totally different companies, utilities, big tech, and trucking. And they're like, look, we literally can't spend all of our money on cybersecurity. We could, but we can't. So you have to pick and choose which spots are most vulnerable. How do you determine that?
Well, one both good thing and challenge is our company gives us an unlimited budget in terms of tech investment and people investment. I always say the most important thing in cyber defense is the caliber of talent, the team you actually put on the wall to prevent intrusion, to detect it, and then if or when detected, mitigate it brilliantly. So a lot of the success, in fact, I would attribute all of the success we've had in this space in protecting our customers and teams to the talent that we've got.
What's the role of the government in this, and particularly your relations with the government? And when you hear that the FBI has been investigating this particular chip for some time, certainly it wasn't made publicly known. It may have been communicated to individual companies. But from your experience, do you have a great relationship? Do they call you up? Do they say, boy, we think you have a problem here, or vice versa? Do you share information with them?
It's a two-direction and multilateral sharing. I would say the most important role government has is to cause and mandate that sharing to occur. There is no competitive advantage to secrets in this space, especially regarding risk, and sharing is the key to prevention and detection. People ask about regulation. I'm not sure regulation is the answer. I do know that government has a huge role to play in how we share data with each other.
Throughout the last hour and a half, we've been talking in different ways of sort of the next Cold War, say in technology, for example. In your experience and expertise, how vulnerable are U.S. companies versus other companies in the world versus other countries in the world?
Well, I think any company, regardless of where it's domiciled or headquartered, that has a global presence and that sources globally is more at risk than a company that's insular and stays at home. So I would say the risk is amped up for global firms. In a lot of ways, that scale that causes a global firm to be in existence is important to defense. Defense does take money and people, and it takes really sustained investment over time. We've had a dedicated information security team, centralized team with enforcement authority in the company since 2008.
How is Bank of America Merrill Lynch positioned particularly when it comes to trade problems, international problems? Because you have a very substantial domestic U.S. deposit-taking base that you operate off. You have international operations, to be sure. I know you had a China operation. I think you actually shut it down at some point. Are you more or less exposed if, in fact, we do end up with substantial, can I say, de-globalization?
Well, our customers, no matter what jurisdictional regulation or country-by-country regulation exists, our customers are global. And so we'll do whatever it takes in terms of innovation or business model to make sure we can serve their needs.
Well, let's turn then to your fabulous award that you won as a way to talk about gender diversity, because it's not just sort of a buzzword ESG thing, right? I mean, look at California. They're now requiring women on a board. What do you think about that? Like that kind of requirement, like Norway has, which apparently has done really well for diversity.
Well, I'm not sure requirements are the answer. I don't think prescriptions about where talent should be used or how talent should be employed. And as a woman, I would never, ever want to think, nor do most of the strong women I know want to think they got a job because of a law or a mandate. What I do think is this. 50% of the people in the workforce are women. 50% of the people that join our company are women. As long as you get to higher levels of management, 50% of our people are women. When 50% of our CEOs aren't women, we have a measure of the progress we have got to make.
We have to make it, but how do we make it? I mean, because you do have this experience in the boardroom, in the C-suite. I mean, how do we get there? Because we talk about it a lot, we don't seem to be getting there.
I'm very fortunate because it's front and center in the conversations at the firm. 40% of our board is diverse, 40% women, 40% of our management team is women, 40% of our top 1,000. So I'm lucky in that it's a very active conversation. I will say this, I don't think that the talk and the action and the dedicated smart people that have been working on gender diversity for decades, I don't think we're seeing the progress that all of that thought should produce. I've been thinking a lot about what should I be working on over the next year. I'm starting to have some emerging theories about our women in power alley jobs that take them to CEO roles. I don't know that I know the answer to the next 5 years. I know that what we've been doing in the past hasn't been getting us where we want to go.
Right, so that's kind of my question, like, what's the problem? Because now it's like CEOs are talking about it, there's a mandate in California, like, it's on there, it's up there, shareholders want it. What's the biggest holdup that you see?
Well, I actually don't know the answer to that. I wish if I knew, more than one of my direct reports would be a woman. I do know this. 3 years ago, 3 of my direct reports were women, 2 hired away by other firms. We aren't doing ourselves as corporate industry being, helping create new pipelines of talent. We're poaching each other's talent for a lot of, in some cases, really good reasons. When I do think the focus, though, and our focus at the firm is ensuring that the pipeline is strong enough to produce the kind of results that get us to that 40% of our senior workforce being women. Tech disciplines, if you don't mind my saying that, tech disciplines are really hard, right? We can say 50% of the entering workforce in general is women. In U.S. colleges and universities this year, about 17% of the STEM, the engineering, technology, math graduates, 17% of them will be women. So from the start in the tech disciplines, we under-index. And again, fortunate to work for a firm who's all over this.
So to broaden out here, and it's great to get you here to get your focus on sort of next year. As you look at 2019, what's the biggest risk? What's going to keep you up most at night?
Well, cyber reports to me. I'm very focused every single day on cyber. And if the board was asking me, I would say third-party risks in cyber. So you've given us a great platform to talk about that today. I also think the pace of change, regardless of whether it's cyber or technology in general, one thing I spend a lot of time thinking about is, has the pace of change exceeded an enterprise's ability to keep up with it? And I believe there are lots of solutions to that. That'll be a huge focus for the firm as we move into next year in my spaces.